Today I'm really excited to try raw, local honey for the first time. And I also want to make this a tea adventure by trying it with different kinds of tea. I'll start off with green tea, then black tea, and then finally some chai. So it'll be kind of interesting. It's like having raw honey with increasingly less raw teas, if that makes sense. But anyways, let's start off with just giving the honey a taste on its own and really try to appreciate its flavor. I'm just letting it coat my entire mouth. Also making sure to get enough air in as well. Oh, yeah. Just let it coat your mouth and then it all hits you at once. All the sugars, the flavors. That is strong, that is nice. It's a nice, smooth, rounded flavor. Nothing that jumps out at you too much, but it's a really nice, balanced flavor. And the sweetness is just out of this world. The texture is also just sticks in your mouth, coats the entire thing. Anyways, I can go on about this for a while, but let's actually get some tea going, and then we'll try it with that. While the water's boiling, I'll go over the teas we'll be using. So first of all, oh, sorry honey, let's move you out of the way. First, we're just going to be using some Japanese green tea. This tea isn't anything special, it's not super high grade, it's just from the local grocery store. It has a nice vegetal bitter flavor, and it's nothing too crazy. So I think it's a good baseline to try this honey with. Next up is going to be some black tea. If you're interested in a specific brand, it's this one, Vagbakri, which means tiger and goat. It's supposed to be a blend of black teas. It says special international blend here, but I rather suspect that a lot of it is just from India. I'm making that distinction because there is another type of black tea called Ceylon black tea, which is from Sri Lanka, and it has a different kind of growing condition, different kind of flavor profile. I haven't tried it yet, but that's just for my research, so I want to make sure it's very clear what region this tea is from. And of course for the chai, we're going to be using black tea, that black tea, and a couple of very interesting spices. My chai spice mix is going to consist of cardamom, clove, black pepper, and cinnamon. By the way, you know it's an Indian household when your spices are still in their original packaging and then also put in a separate bottle. That's just the way it is. The water is coming to a boil, so I'm going to pre-weigh my green tea, 3 grams. And then once the water is fully at a boil, I'll measure out 130 milliliters of boiling water and then pour it in for 30 seconds. I'm only doing it for 30 seconds because that's what the instructions said, and you know, I like to follow orders sometimes. I should also mention that I am at an altitude. I'm at around 22,000 feet above sea level, so my boiling water is actually around 97 degrees Celsius. I don't actually know how much to pour in right now, so I'm just gonna go with I'm just gonna have to pour in some green tea to dissolve it. All right, green tea with raw honey, let's give it a try. A little goes a long way, wow. That is honestly one of the most comforting drinks I've had in my entire life. Wow. I want to have another one, but I gotta move on and make sure I have enough room for everything else. We're gonna measure out our tea, our black tea. 4 grams of black tea for 200 milliliters of water. By the way, thanks very much for the people watching the video that commented. I post a lot of shorts actually, and one of the people watching that commented and gave me the idea to try raw honey. And I was looking for the longest time to find something local, and one of my walks, it just popped up. I saw a poster, and it was like the most local raw honey ever. Literally just a couple kilometers outside my city. And they were very conveniently delivering right next to my house. Like I could just walk up to a house nearby and be like, I'd like some raw honey please. And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm very fortunate for that to happen and very fortunate that I can make this video with some very convenient, very local, very raw honey. And for this one, I'm gonna go for 3 minutes. I used to do 4 minutes, but when I did an actual test and an experiment, the 4 minute actually was a bit more bitter than I was hoping for. The 3 minute by comparison was a nice perfect blend of bitterness and flavor, and it was just, the 3 minutes was a lot better from my experience. So 3 minutes it is. What I actually want to do next is visit it's called an apiary as opposed to an aviary, which would be related to birds. So an apiary is a bee farm, and I actually want to visit this bee farm in particular and see what happens there and actually get more of a connection to what I eat. Because, you know, nowadays it's all through a supply chain. You don't even get to see where your food comes from. And having the opportunity to see where honey, one of the most hard to access production-wise foods, having access to that right near my city and right near my house, it'd be an opportunity I can't really pass up. So yeah, let me know if that's something you're interested in. I definitely want to visit no matter what. Hopefully the owners are, nice enough to let me film. It'd be really cool. I think I'd really enjoy that experience. This French press, by the way, is actually my second one. I embarrassingly broke my first one, this exact same model, just by cleaning it. I got pretty aggressive one time, shaking it out, rinsing it out. Very depressing as well, because it's like a completely unforced error. Let's give the black tea a try on its own. Oh yeah, there we go. This is the perfect mix I'm talking about, just that bitterness, but not too much, but it's also not completely mild. Gives you a bit of a kick. No, this is good. And let's see if it gets better with some honey. So in goes a spoon, in goes the tea. Let's dissolve it a bit. I love the color change when you add honey to black tea. It goes from a really dark, almost reddish brown color to a nice golden amber color. And it is, first of all, a lot of perception of taste is dependent on your visuals and the scent. So something that appeals to you visually is likely going to taste better as well. And I'm sure that's part of a big factor here as well. Oh, wow. This one's definitely has a lot more attitude than the green tea. So it's the honey sweet, but then the black tea, the bitterness of it kicks in as well. It's a sweet initial flavor and that bit of bitter kick as an aftertaste. It is a bit astringent though, I will say that. Maybe less tea, instead of 4 grams, maybe go for 3 in 200 mils to get less of that astringency. Astringency is like that, it makes your mouth feel dry and generally an unpleasant characteristic. A bit of it, gives you that tea kind of flavor, but too much of it just makes you feel, it's not a good mouthfeel. Without the astringency, I think it'd be like top notch, 100%. But still, I like this bit of attitude. You can't just let the sweetness take over. You have to have a bit of bite to it to really make it work. But anyways, next up, we're gonna get straight to the chai. So we got all our spices ready and I'm gonna bring out my mortar and pestle. I'll be honest, I can't afford a spice grinder right now, but even if I could, I don't know if I'd want to use one because there's a bit of a nice connection you get when you grind your own spices by hand. Like you saw me measuring out a lot of my teas and stuff, but with spices, I just kind of give up. I'm like, you know what? Let's just do whatever feels right. So I'm using 4 cardamom pods, 3 cloves, pinch of black pepper, maybe a bit more. And then for the cinnamon, I'm just gonna use half a stick. Snap that in half, throw it in there. There it is. I'm not trying to pulverize these spices either. Just open them up a bit. Get that extra surface area so that they diffuse a lot better. I'm gonna play it a bit risky today by, again, making the chai by eye. Usually I would measure it out, 100 milliliters of milk, 300 milliliters of black tea, but I'm feeling a bit risky today. Maybe it's all that honey. Okay, so all the spices go inside the milk as it simmers. When it comes to chai, so what I've been doing so far is really trying to control the process. And what I'll do is I'll make the tea, the black tea separately, and then I'll use the milk mixture, I'll simmer that separately, then I'll combine the two and then bring it up to a boil. I know that's not conventional, but it's just what I do because I want more control over the final product. But I think from now on, I'm going to start doing it the conventional, authentic way, which is to brew the black tea directly in the milk. And the main indicator of if the tea or the chai has turned out properly is by looking at the color and by giving it a smell. You might have noticed in my videos, I always pour out 2 cups of chai instead of just 1. And that's because I want to symbolize the second one being for whoever's watching. I don't like chai being a solitary event. I want it to be more of a community thing, more of something to build relationships. So that's why I'll pour out a second one, even if I don't drink it on camera. You can really smell cardamom. Cardamom is the one thing that just jumps out at me a lot. I'd have liked it a bit darker, but you know what? Let's see what the taste tells us and then we'll go from there. What I'm doing right now is pulling the chai, so that just means aerating it, cooling it down. Pour one out for you guys, and then one for myself. All right, let me give it a quick taste, make sure it's okay. Nah, we're gonna do this again. This is too weak. I'm not gonna waste this tea, obviously. Sorry about that, guys. I'm pouring yours out. We'll make a better one. I'm just gonna put it back on the flame, let the tea steep a bit more. This is probably very blasphemous the more I think about it, but you know what? We're here to learn. We're here to try this out, have fun with it. Just add a bit more tea and then also just let it steep for a bit longer. Yeah, so that happens sometimes, I don't want to go through with subpar chai because that just wouldn't be as fun of an experience for me and it wouldn't really teach me anything either. So we're going to try doing it right and hopefully this Frankenstein chai ends up being, up to par. All right, second time's a charm. I'll tell you this, it does smell better already, so that's one thing. Maybe that's a lesson, just don't rush the chai, and definitely don't rush the pulling. All right, so one for you. Oh, that looks much better. One for me. Let's give it a taste to make sure it's quality. Much better, much better. Now what we're gonna do is add in the honey. This is gonna be exciting. Mix it up a bit. The anticipation is killing me. Sweet, spicy, aromatic. Oh, that's fantastic. That's the end of this tea adventure, but I can't wait to see where the pursuit of tea and new flavors will take me next. It'll be fun.